Welcome to the DexRated podcast, where we have naked conversations. I'm your host, Dexter Nixon. All right, so welcome to DexRated podcast, where we have naked conversations, of course, with our clothes on.
Okay.
My guest today is a brother I met in 1996, 97 at Warner Brothers Studio. He was maybe the coolest guy on the lot. We stayed in touch through social media all these years.
Yes, sir.
This is my first conversation with him since 1997.
It's crazy to me.
He is the executive producer and writer of the hit TV show All American. He was the producer on Pearson, executive story editor for a TV series called Rosewood. Good show.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Writer for Unsolved, The Murders of Tupac and the Notorious B.I.G.
Yes, sir.
Writer of Being Mary Jane, Breakout
Yes,
Kings, Red Window, Lie to Me, and The Shield, which was my shit.
Yeah, man.
DexRated Podcast welcomes Mr. JamieTurner.
What up? What up? What's up, man? What's up, family?
So
What's
now,
good?
let's get into this, bro.
Yes,
now,
sir.
I met you, man, on the lot. I believe I was working at the time. It was either I was on either the show Rewind or I had just got the For Your Love. And you were on, I think, Built to Last at first.
Yes. Yep. Which is crazy.
And then you moved to Jamie Foxx.
No, I did. It's interesting, man. I never was on Fox. It's interesting, man. You know, back then, when Henry Johnson kind of like Godfather Henry Johnson, Warner Brothers exec, the man, we all know and love him. If you worked on one of his shows, you kind of worked on four of them. You kind of did all of them.
He put you everywhere.
He put you everywhere. I did Living Single one week. I did he had you over there in Amsterdam. I'm like, I don't know anybody over there, Henry. He's like, I don't care. You're gonna go over there. You're gonna work these phones. You're gonna figure it out. But he was like, I didn't say Henry, I said Mr. Johnson. But he was he was so I did Built to Last with Royale, which is wild because my whole life and everything now is full circle because I was at Warner Brothers now. We're at Warner Brothers now. Like All American is at Warner Brothers, and Royale's wife, April, season 1, she worked costume on All American, and so I'd always heard about April, but I didn't know her, and so I walked up to her and I was like, "Yo, I was on Built to Last," and she was like, "What?" I was like, "I was on this lot, 23 years ago, working on that show with Greg Garcia." And it's, and God rest Natalie DeSalle's soul, bro, because that thing that hurt, man. Last week when she passed away, dude, I was like, she was on that show, bro. It was a lot. Warfield, like the crazy, like the Jeremy kid who was on Bernie Mac, like it was crazy talent on there. So I did that. I was on not Breakout Kings. I was on Built to Last, and then I feel like I jumped around because I did the Dexter Strauss. I did that whole. They had that show Odd Man Out, Ed Dexter and John Strauss, and it's funny because that's kind of how that was the next move in my career actually, Dex. Because I was working with Ed and John, and I ended up somehow they had read like a spec of mine. It was Homicide: Life on the Street, and I think I know the Baltimore
show. That's right.
You know how much I love that show, and everything. And back then, me and my sister, we used to talk about it like every Friday, and because it would come on Friday night, 10:00, and I would record it, bro. I had it on VHS. This is how crazy that was. Like I had and Jeff. When you remember Jeff, my best friend, Jeff. Jeff, we still best friends to this day, and Jeff was like. Because this is when we was living together out in Fullerton, he would we make sure that we recorded. And so Homicide was my show, and I ended up writing a spec script, and then those dudes read it, and they were like, it was crazy. Like the shit that I put in there was nuts, dude.
Let me ask you this, because when I met you, like I wanted to be, when I first came out to Cali, I wanted to be, I thought, a film director, which I still have aspirations to. Yes. But as I was working in TV, I started to see how writing was so important. Now, when I met you, you had already knew that you wanted to be a writer. Like, when did that click for you? Because you were young, man. We were like 26, 25 years old.
For me, high school. Yeah, I had written a play. The Rodney King thing kind of popped off. And you know, it had affected all of us, obviously. More so LA than Oakland, but you know, we felt the riots and we felt all the tension. We felt all of the residual effects of it, obviously nationwide, but definitely in Cali. If you're living in Cali, you really felt it because there's a lot of looting, a lot of protesting, and it was nuts. And I remember I was in Berkeley one night with my boys, and we used to always hang out there because that's where you would meet the girls, would be in Berkeley. And but that night it was not that. And it's crazy because it didn't. The impact of it hadn't hit me yet. Like I knew what was going on, and I knew that it wasn't right. But it wasn't until we went to Berkeley that night, and they was like, "Y'all shouldn't be here." And I'm like, "What do you mean we shouldn't be here?" And I looked around, and it was riots, it was looting, and all I saw was like this cadre of policemen, like walled off, had like Shattuck Avenue walled off. And I remember looking at my boy and kind of looking around, like this shit is real. And so from that, I'd taken that experience and what I'd seen that night, and I said, you know what? I always knew that I wanted to write. I just didn't know how to do it. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna write about this experience. And so, but I'm gonna put my own take on it. And so I ended up writing this play about this dude who was basically beaten up by the cops outside of a bowling alley in Alameda, which is just outside of Oakland. And it was like a one-act play. I mean, bro, I was on a typewriter. I know what the fuck I was doing. I was just pouring out, you know, anything that had affected me.
Yeah.
Based off of what I'd seen in person and what I'd seen on camera, because that was the other thing about what I saw out in the streets of Berkeley kind of reoriented everything for me. So then I wanted to go back and kind of, because at that point, that's all that was on the news was the Rodney King of it all and getting beaten and Hyundai and all that other stuff. So from that point on, I kind of immersed myself in what had happened. And then I ended up writing a play that was very similar to that. It's like 20 pages. And I'd written it and I was done. I didn't really know what else to do. And so my sister, God rest her soul, she was always like my number one champion. And so I would give it to her and she read it and she was like, man, there's something here. And I was like, and I didn't know, man. I mean, it ultimately, the craziest thing about that story was that in its own way, it was kind of a story about a father and a son, because this dude had kind of gotten into this thing where he was, you know, he was going to his car, cops pressed him. He kind of talked back to the cops, kind of popped off at the cops put hands on him. And the way his dad kind of looked at it, his dad was like, you shouldn't have said anything. You should have played the game the right way, did what they said and kind of kept it moving. Yeah. And his grandpa felt differently. And his grandpa, so it's basically like this generation, you know, of like, it was like this generation, these three generations of men who had completely different takes on the situation. And he was complaining to his grandpa because he was like, my, you know, pops doesn't get it and he wants to be safe and I don't know how to be safe and all this other stuff. And it's so wild to think about it now, Dex. I had no idea what I was writing at the time. I had no idea that it had any kind of layer, any kind of depth to it. I just did it. And
what were you doing it for? Like, was it just therapy for you, or was it just?
It was therapy for me, definitely, man. Because again, man, the way seeing those cops that night, seeing that thing live, it kind of did something to me. You know what I mean? It kind of let me know, because I saw people getting snatched up, getting hemmed up. We were smart enough to kind of get out of the way and kind of get back to the car, but we were also dumb enough to kind of stick around. Like we didn't leave like right away. It was like me and Jeff and my boy Derek and a couple of we didn't leave. Yeah, but we also kind of played it on the periphery where we were like just out of eyesight of these dudes. But we were kind of watching it, and I'm seeing live how people are getting their ass whooped. I'm seeing this, and you don't know what to do. Yeah. And at that, and for me, the only way that I could even talk about it, or the only way that I felt like, not even so much that I could affect change, but I could like do something about it, was to just write this thing. And so I ended up writing it, and it turned into like this story about fathers and sons and about generational curses and all that other stuff that at the time I had no idea I was doing. And literally, I bullshit you not, it was not until we moved into our house like 3 years ago, I found it and I read it. And I hadn't read it in almost 30 years. Yeah. And I read it and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is what was going, like whatever was going on in my head in the moment, you know, it was crazy because at the time, I had a dad. My dad was like, you know, you guys have seen me post about my dad a lot because my dad was like the greatest dude ever. And he was, but the great thing about my pops is like, it wasn't until later in life that he was the kind of dad that, you know, that would tell you how much he loved you. He was a prototypical black dad from the South. Like he basically, he expressed that love through action and he did it well. And that's what he did. And then when we all moved out, we started hearing, it was 4 of us. When we all moved out, we started hearing in every conversation, hey, man, I love you, man. We started hearing that. And it was great. But at the time, you didn't hear it. And when I was like 18, 19 years old, so I think part of it was like, I believe he's a great dad. I know he's a great dad, but, I'm not hearing that. And
what Denzel Washington say? I ain't got to like you.
Yeah, I ain't got exactly. Yes, that's basically what it was. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got to like you.
I ain't got to like you.
That's basically what it was at the time. And I ended up writing about that. And then that relationship changed like for the better later in life. And so I realized when I was going back through it and looking at it, I'm like, I'm talking about generational curses and I'm talking about all of this other shit that I had no idea that I was doing. Right, and so long story short, I was in a drama class in like the 11th grade in my high school and the drama teacher read it. And she was like, we're going to do this next year. And I'm like, what do you mean you're going to do this? We're going to do a 1-act play and you're going to direct it. I'm like, what? She said, you're going to direct it and you're going to cast it. And I'm like, I'm 16. She was like, I don't care. You're going to figure this out. And so the following year, like the fall, it was going into my senior year. I had to cast it. I ended up directing it. I found this kid who was like the 10th grade version of me, which is nuts. I found like, there were people, obviously, because, bro, I did not hold back. I mean, I was hardcore in the language and everything. And there were a couple of kids who weren't comfortable with it. And I was like, okay, well, I got to find somebody that's comfortable in saying some of the shit that y'all about to say, because you're going to say some shit. And so I had to go through that whole process until I found somebody. And I remember having those conversations with my drama teacher. I'm like, well, he don't want to say the N-word. And she was like, it's funny. She's like, well, can you blame him? But then on the flip, it's like, this is part of the project. I'm like, he got to say it. I said, we ain't candy coating this. I said, it's cursing, it's everything. And I told my parents beforehand, I said, it's hardcore. Yeah. And she was like, okay. And we found somebody that was willing to do it, and he did it. And it just kind of took off from there, man. I mean, from that, I did it. It was well received. And then they asked me, could I write like a PSA? I ended up writing like a PSA later on that year for the school. I just started doing more stuff kind of like in the arts for them. And at that point, I kind of knew. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to pursue. I didn't exactly know because I didn't go to 4-year university, bro. Like I did a couple of junior colleges, and then I just moved to LA. I moved out to LA with Jeff, and I was going to the UCLA Extension at night, and then I ended up getting my job at Warner Brothers, and it just kind of took off.
But we know, because I try to tell my students, we know that your education is what you're doing. What do you in this industry? It's about what have you done, not tell me what school you went to, because you can go to any school, but if you haven't done anything, then you're not really going to get to work, because people want to see what you can do.
100%.
So, it's an industry about what have you done.
I agree. And it's interesting that you say that, man, because outside of like the USC mafias and the NYU mafias and like the Yale mafias, you're 100% correct. Because I feel like some of them they can get kind of protected and guided and taken care of in a really cool way. Yeah. Some of the kids who are fortunate enough to graduate from those institutions, but for the most part,
well, they got connections.
Exactly, but it's because of those connections. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're gonna go to USC film school, they got connects.
Oh, big time.
And that's NYU film school got connect.
Yep. Big time.
Matter of fact, there's a story. Spike Lee came to my high school after I had graduated, though. I went back to see him speak. And while he was there, I asked a question. And my question was, I want to be a filmmaker. I was in college then. I want to be a filmmaker. What advice would you give me? And he said, are you making films? I said, no. He said, well, you're not a filmmaker. And that was his answer. And I was like, okay. But I learned so much from that, because what he basically was telling me is, if you're not doing it, then you're not about it, then that's not what you are.
That's real. I mean, he kept it. He kept it 100%. He kept it 100% real, man. Like, and it's interesting, man, because to be honest with you, there's not enough truth like that in this industry. Yeah. And I do respect him for that. And he's right, because one of the things that you got to figure out, and we're seeing it now more with these kids who got way more access to stuff now, because of the world of influencers and all that other stuff. People that are doing content, 5-10 minutes. I mean, I tell people all the time, I tell our PAs all the time, I'm like, look, bro, kind of to Spike Lee's point, you know what I mean? You know, don't talk about it, be about it. And if you're gonna do it, like, you can shoot shit on your phone now, bro. You can edit stuff on your phone. It's not, you got way too much access. I'm like, even if it's a 5, I say, even if you do like 3 or 4 vignettes and kind of string them together and kind of create this really cool narrative, do it. You know what I mean? And keep doing it. And like, cause that's how you get better. That's how you kind of find your way. And then once you get on someone's radar, you know, then you'll have somebody that'll help you, and then it kind of builds from there.
Right. Well, here's the thing too that I think you can speak on. When I do deal with students coming through the system, a lot of them see work, you know, on YouTube, and they try to emulate, to me, the bad work that they see and not the quality work. And I don't know if they can tell the difference anymore, because they like some of the trash that they see. And I watch it and go, that's trash. Why are you trying to do that? And it's like, well, I mean, it's popular and it's got 1 million likes. And I'm like, that's not good filmmaking, though. That's terrible filmmaking. So how hard is it, especially you're in the position you're in today, getting, especially, you know, African-American young people in this industry? Is that, because it was difficult. You know, it was so difficult during our day when we were 20s. I can't imagine what it's like today, especially with the students not really understanding quality.
Yes, that's a great question, bro. And what I can say is, like, there's been progress. And what I mean by that is there's a little bit more access. And Dex, just to give you, within the last 5 years, to give you an idea, because to your point, you're 100% correct, bro. Like, it was just having 2 black PAs was an anomaly, like back in the day. You know what I mean? It's like, we met a quote, and it's like, all right, you know, it's enough of y'all. Like, let me close this door. Let me see what else I can do. You know, y'all talking? Why y'all talking? This is weird. Like, it was always like, it was always met with like this conspiratorial bent, right? But now it's like, I saw a change about 5 years ago, man. You know, for the first 3 or 4 shows that I was blessed to be staffed on, I was the only black dude. And you typically had a role, right? It's like, if there's one black character, you be the voice of so-and-so, right? That's kind of what was your thing, right? And so, as racist as that is, that's kind of what was your thing, right? And so, it was unspoken, but you kind of knew that's what it was. And so,
but you probably felt like there was some type of responsibility to make sure that black character represented. That's a lot of pressure, man.
100%. And I made sure, and even at a lower level, you know, I made sure to speak up. And this is the thing, like, the fights that you kind of came up against was like people telling you what they felt versus what you experienced, right? And like, I'm like, no, bro, I know that dude. There are parts of me that are that character, or this is a cousin, or this is a friend. Like, I know, I understand it, and they couldn't. And it became ego, or whatever it might have been. It became a fight, and so most of the time you're going to lose a fight that you should win, that you deservedly should win. And then became one of those situations where you just kind of had to pick your spots. Like, when there were times when it's like you had to be passionate and kind of die on the hill for something, you had to do it. And then other times you just kind of let things slide, but you never felt good about yourself when you went home that night. So it's like, but you know, that's kind of what it was. And that was for the first 3 or 4 shows that I'd worked on. And then I was kind of out of the game as far as the staffing for like 2 years. And like, just bad luck, a lot of empty promises, people promising jobs that for whatever reason didn't happen, and either the show didn't get picked up or they were lying. And then I got a job in Rosewood. I ended up getting a job on Rosewood. And Rosewood, which is 2015, was the beginning of a paradigm shift that I saw. Because when I started Rosewood, it was 2 other black writers on the show, and then we also had 2 Latino writers. So total, we have 5 minorities out of 9. And that was like, I'd never seen that in my life, ever. Right. To be honest with you, if it would have just been me and another black writer, that would have been a paradigm shift, right? And so the fact that it was 5 out of 9 had kind of spoken to the times in this different way. And the showrunner at the time, my boss on that show, Todd Harthan, was like, look, this is a show about a black man, you know, Morris Chestnut is a black male lead. I am not going to write this show with a room full of white dudes. That is not right. I said, I want to make sure that we are as specific and that we are as true to who this man is as possible, but I want to give him different shades. I don't just want one side of what he could be. I want multiple perspectives on who I believe this person could be to kind of make him a multi-layered character. And it just so happened that on that show, I met two of my best friends to this day, and Marquis Jackson, who's a dope writer and stuff, and then Keiichi Okoro Carroll, who was our showrunner on All American, and that's my girl. That's family. And so we all ended up working together on that show, and unfortunately, it was only there for 2 years. And then when I left there, I went over to Unsolved, and Unsolved was a smaller room. It was 6 of us, but 4 of us were people of color. It was me, it was 2 Black women who I'm still great friends with to this day, my homegirl Tash, and D. Harris Lawrence, who now runs All Rise and David Makes Man on OWN. And Tash is about to take over the world. She's doing the whole Stars, the Kanan, the 50 Cent prequel. She's gonna take over the world.
Yeah, doing that. So what was it like? We got to pause right there on that Unsolved, man. What was it like doing? Because we lived during that era of Tupac and Biggie, and here you are doing the show that was like really telling the story of what really happened. And I tell, my students when I deal with them too, I said, you guys hear a lot of myths and you guys say a lot of things, but we actually heard, especially living in LA, I remember the first thing I was told when I was in LA is, don't make jokes about Suge Knight out loud. You don't know who's listening.
Facts.
And I mean,
that's big facts, bro.
That's serious about that. Facts. And I was like, y'all for real? It was like, for real.
Big facts.
Don't make jokes.
Bruh.
And I remember seeing Tupac riding down Beverly Hills in a drop top Bentley, I think it was, or Rolls Royce, and with a wife beater. I actually took a picture. I don't even know what it is. It was like a Polaroid or something. I took him riding down the street in his drop top Rolls Royce.
Picture me rolling.
Yeah, right. And I was like, that's Tupac, but he wasn't who he became to the generation, which was this mythical character. We had a love-hate for him, at least from the East Coast.
Right.
It was a love-hate. He was from Baltimore. Well, he says New York, but then he grew up in Baltimore. Yep. And then, he went to the West Coast, and we kind of, were fans of his. But then he goes after the East Coast guy who we were all championing, which was Biggie. And and I will say, too, the West Coast at the time was really taking over. The West Coast had taken over rap.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
Since Chronic, basically since Chronic, Or you can make the argument NWA in general, like
NWA, Yep, I was a fan of Ice-T.
Yes, Ice. Oh, bro.
On the
6 in the morning.
When I heard 6 in the morning, I knew that was an East Coast joint, but I was like, I like how he's doing it. I became a fan of Ice-T when that dropped, and then of course NWA, and then when Tupac came out. And they were like, he went to the School of Arts here in Baltimore. I was like, oh, all right. So we riding with Tupac. What was it like to be hired for that and then have to tell that story?
It was interesting, man, because, I think sometimes, and I know the show in itself caught a lot of flack, mainly because there's a lot of people had a lot of love for it. I loved it. I loved my experience on there. I thought it was amazing. I think that we caught some flack because people wanted more Big Pac stuff, and I get it, and they're not wrong. I think that, but what people had to realize is that the book that the show was based on is about a police investigation. Right. And that's the biggest thing for people to kind of wrap their minds around. And so much of it kind of dealt with the investigation in itself. But as far as the Pac Big stuff, man, I mean, it was really fascinating, dude, because, as much as, to your point earlier, like we were here when this is going down. And as much as we know about it, there's so much that you don't know about, and there are so many different elements to it that I found fascinating. And I mean, we know all of the surface stuff. I think at the end of the day, the most unfortunate thing about all of this is miscommunication ultimately led to these two dudes' demise. Like, not even in their prime yet. Like, they were like creeping into their prime.
They were like 26.
It's 25 and 24, dude. They're babies. Just think, Dex, to put it into perspective, like, we ain't talked to each other, right? Like, we ain't had this kind of conversation. We've spoken through social media and whatnot, but we haven't had this kind of conversation. Like, the amount of time is basically how old Biggie was.
How Biggie was. That's crazy. I mean?
That's like 23 years, right? So that's crazy. Like Biggie was 24 years old. And I think that so much of it was miscommunication, man. As far as like the interesting stuff that I've learned, man, there's a couple of takeaways from it that were really some of the most fascinating things to me. There was a dude, Big Jake, who was like Suge's best friend, right? And in a lot of ways, people have said that Big Jake played a huge part in kind of keeping Suge reined in, right? Just kind of like Big Jake had big dreams. He was a dreamer. He was the one dude that he was the Suge whisperer, right? And when Big Jake was murdered in Atlanta, and it was somehow tied to Puff, like that kind of shifted the dynamic. From that point on, the beef was on because Pac, because to that point, Suge and Puff were pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like Suge was kind of doing his thing. He was finessing his way into the game. He was kind of, he was having cordial conversations with Puff. And it really wasn't until the Big Jake thing kind of popped off in Atlanta that kind of shifted that dynamic.
That was that shooting at the party, right?
The shooting at the party at the club, and then Jake died, and like once that happened, man, I feel like that changed a lot because the one thing no one knows is that if Big Jake were still alive, what kind of dude would Suge have become? What kind of businessman would he have become? That's the one thing none of us truly know. He could have continued down that same path, or he could have taken a different path. You know what I mean? That's the one thing we don't know. And I don't know if that's a man wounded that was still kind of living that thing out and never had the Suge Whisperer with him. You know what I'm saying? And this is purely speculative. I'm not 100% certain, but I feel like based off of how we kind of choreographed that story and based off of the stuff that we were researching and reading, like that was one of the things that just kind of stood out to me that was different. That was something that I had no idea about. I had no clue. And then the Pac side of it was just fascinating, bro. Just in terms of like who he was and how similar him and Big were. These dudes are both Geminis, right? And it's like they're opposites. They're like they're opposite spectrums of it, but also still very similar. You know what I mean? And so it was interesting because you had the more relaxed version of a Gemini on whatever moon he fell versus like the more erratic one. But like so much of like what Pac was doing. And so much of it was posturing, you know what I mean? And then I think that so much of it also was just him, a longing for him to find some stuff. And we were blessed, man, because we had Pac's real brother, his brother, Mo Preem. Mo Preem was on set.
Mo Preem,
and Mo Preem he's a solid dude, man. I got nothing but love for Mo. And he was great in terms of how he just kind of walked us through who Pac was and kind of like, and then in terms of performance, because the kid who played Tupac, Mark Rose, who really kind of fell into it, really by around episode 3 or 4, really started to own who he was as Tupac. It was a big part of it was because of Mo Preem and Dub C. Like Dub C, the rapper Dub C, West Side Connection, Mad Circle, Dub C was also like, Doug is
with the braids in his beard.
Yes, it's like gang, ding, ding, bang, like. Dub C is the man, bro. Like, he is one of the coolest dudes you will ever meet. And it's crazy because Dub has become a bit of a dialect coach because he is on Snowfall, the kid.
Yes, I saw that.
He's helping dialect
helping
coach,
the star.
Yes.
Damon Idris, or whatever his name
is. Damson Idris. Yeah, he has become his guy.
To jump to that real quick, it's interesting. It's a game that we play, me, my son, and my wife, and we see a young black actor come on TV, and we go, I wonder if he's British.
Yep.
And we watch and go, let's look him up and see if he's done an interview. And of course, my man from Snowfall is British. My man from All American
British.
I'm like, damn, every time you see a young brother, you going, there's no way he's British, and he's British.
The dude in the One Night in Miami that's gonna drop in Amazon, the back conversation between Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown and Sam Cooke. The dude playing Malcolm X, British.
He's British.
British, bro.
Wow.
British. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, but I've heard. I've been hearing nothing great things about it.
Yeah, I saw the trailer or whatever.
But yeah, I mean, it was a lot. It's interesting, man. At that time, because you brought up something really interesting earlier about like West Coast, East Coast, and how, yes, the West Coast is beginning to take over at NWA. But even when Ice Cube bounced, his first album was with the Bomb Squad.
Oh, man.
So this dude went to the East Coast. He still went with Chuck D's people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? For his first album and murdered it. I mean, it's still it's arguably my favorite by him. I mean, Death Certificate is pretty special. Yeah. and they're neck and neck to me in terms of my two favorites by Cube. But like, but to your point, there was a comfort level. That thing existed. And I feel like even Pac getting shot outside a quad, making it upstairs, kind of seeing those two dudes kind of like in the studio. We'd heard both sides of the story. Yeah. We had a lot of people between the books, and then we had people who experienced it, people who were working for Puff at the time, people who were, you know, connected to Pac, who were connected to Big. So we had heard all of these different perspectives, man. And it's really interesting because we had Mo Preem. And so Pac is going to tell his brother the truth. So it's like, so we had him on one side, and then we also had people who had known the Puff side. And the other thing that was really interesting was how Puff was kind of tapped into the Southside Crips. It was just a fascinating relationship, man. And in one of our episodes, episode 7, we really kind of deeply explored that relationship. And we shot episode 7 in Vegas. We were, they put big money in that They put big money in that episode. We shot it in Vegas on the Strip. We probably took out about 30 or 40 tokens. We probably took out about 30 or 40 cars from the 90s, from the mid 90s out there, shot it. Anthony Hemingway shot the shit out of it.
Brother,
It's amazing. And that episode to me is one of the most introspective and unique episodes of the season because it really lives in. There's a moment, man, when you're watching it where you're really feeling for the Southside Crips, who are like Puffy's guys, because they're kind of caught in the middle of this shit, right? These are LA dudes that are doing this work for this dude, and and a lot of it is speculative. I mean, some of it is speculative, but so much of it is based on actual interviews, because we also had the cop that the show was based on. He had written a book, and he had written a book based on his experiences because he's the one that investigated this, and he has documented recordings, you know, with certain gangbangers, you know what I mean? And so it's so much of it.
And actually, since the show, what's the gang, the Crip cat?
Keefy D.
Yeah, Keefy D has been on Vlad TV. He wrote a book. He's basically told the story.
Yes, he's like everywhere now. And
wow. Yeah, he's just telling it.
And bro, we did a scene in Mine with Baby Lane, who, like, to this day, many believe is the guy who killed Pac. We did an episode where we shot him, and it was like how his murder happened, because this murder happened about a year or so after Pac was murdered.
At a gas station somewhere.
At the car wash.
The car wash.
And it's crazy because that car wash where we shot it was only a few miles away from the actual car wash. And I'm like, y'all do realize that, like, we're shooting. This dude is still revered in that neighborhood, man. And it's like, you can't, like, the brazenness to shoot that like 2 miles away. I was like, I don't think the white people understood what they were doing, man.
Yeah.
But we got the right consultant, solid dude, great dude, who basically protected us and had taken care of us at every step.
Tell the people when you're on the set as a writer, what is your role at that point? What are you doing?
You know what's interesting, man? It's supporting the vision. And I think that and ensuring that you're getting the performances that you want, you know. And so much of this is based off of, we'll have what is called, for those who don't know, it's a tone meeting, right? And so the tone meeting is arguably the most important meeting to have before you go out and film the episode. So let's say you, the director, and your showrunner, right? And a couple other people, like an editor, whoever's going to edit your episode, and a couple other people in this conversation. And basically your boss is walking through scene by scene saying, okay, in this, like, you know, when I really want to feel Pac's, this is a terrible example, but like in this moment, I really want to feel Tupac's pain. I really want to feel his confliction in this moment. Like, before this thing happens, I need to feel his confliction. I need to know that he's not making an easy decision. I need to, whatever that might be, right? Like, so, like, that's the tone of that scene. Then you go to the next scene, and in this one, it's about this. You know, there's a backstory between these two. And so a lot of this, the subtext is kind of playing in this scene. Like, I want to feel it, but not say it, right? And so then the next scene is, this is what the tone is, this, that, and whatever. So by the time you're done, sometimes those tone meetings take, I mean, it depends on your showrunner. Some showrunners will spend 4 hours in a tone meeting. Some will do it in an hour, hour and a half. Like, to me, the best ones are like an hour and a half, 2 hours, because they're very detailed, but it's important. And so at that point, and you've written the episode because it's your episode. You've written it, so you know it. And in a lot of ways, they're just echoing everything that you already put in there. But when you get to set, you want to make sure if you and that director, and, you know, you shoot that scene and this actor is performing, that you're getting exactly what was established in that tone meeting. You know what I mean? And that you're staying that actor, the performance wise, the actor is giving you exactly what you would envision. Sometimes they elevate it. Sometimes they meet it right where they need to. Sometimes it takes work.
Because I did a music video.
KG joint, right?
Yes.
Yeah, bro. I still love that video, man.
With MAG and
I remember that. Boo. Yes.
So
you did that
on that set. That was my first time on the set where we spent, I think it was $100,000, and I had the manager, I had the record exec, all of them whispering in my ear the whole time I was directing.
Yep.
Going, hey man, make sure this, make sure that, make sure you show this, make sure you show that. So are you one of them people?
What I do is just me. Because what they're doing, they sound like they're doing way too much.
Oh man, it's so micromanaged, you don't even understand.
No, what I do, man, when I'm with that director, like because I'll also, I mean, it's funny, Chris Robinson, because I know that's all tied to that. Chris Robinson has said something back.
Him, work together.
I rember, I remember you first told me about him, and I remember like I met him.
Worked here in Baltimore, Fox 45 together.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Oh, that is he from Baltimore?
He's from Maryland. He's from Edgewood, which is outside of Baltimore.
So him and I briefly worked on like this feature project together about 5-6 years after that. And one of the things that he told me that I always dug as he was trying to make that transition into TV, he was just starting to kind of do some stuff. And he said, you ain't nothing but a visitor. And I never forgot that, right? And he's like, TV directors are visitors because it's like that's the showrunner's set. It is what it is. It's different, obviously, in the feature world. That's a director's meeting. So that's the director's set. And so he had said that. And so for me, these directors are visitors. And it's no shade. It's just kind of what it is because they're going to come in. They're going to prep for a week or two. They're going to shoot the show for like a week or two. And then they're going to do post for like a week. So they spend like anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks on that total. And then they bounce to the next thing. They'd have forgotten about it. I mean, most of them have forgotten about it. And so, but for me, I always want them to feel comfortable. You know what I mean? So like when they're there, my whole thing, most of my notes that I give them, and I don't overdo it. And I try not to burden them with stuff. Mm-hmm. I normally hit them with a couple of different things. Like All American is easy because we're season 3. Like all of our actors are on point, especially the young ones. Like they get it. They're going to they're going to deliver exactly what you want them to deliver. And there are occasions where you're like, yo, I might need Danny to do this or this or whatever. And you just give that to the director. And it's easy. It's just an easy adjustment. Yeah. So for me, I kind of like give them most of my stuff or whatever I might have within the first take or two. Mm-hmm. And then I'm done. I step back. And then obviously when you kind of get into their coverage, there might be some things that they might do that you might want them to play it a different way for one take. So be like, yo, why don't you see if they can try this or see if they can try that? And then they'll do it, and then they'll be fine. But for the most part, I try to stay out of the way. But there are writers, bro, who give notes every take, which to me is like ridiculous. And there are writers who do that, who will micromanage, who are way too much, So it just depends. I'm not that kind, but they exist.
Let me ask you this, because when we worked together back in the day when we worked in the same buildings. We worked on network shows, and your show, All American, is a network show.
Yep.
I remember taking scripts over to the network, and they had to give notes, and they always gave notes no matter what. And I remember one of the producers telling me, they were like, Dex, they have to give notes to justify their position, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, what is the difference? Because it seemed like you've done cable. Mm-hmm. And now you're back on network, regular network. Is there a difference? Is the reign a little longer on cable, or
it's interesting, man. It depends on the cable because the one thing that I worked in USA and I did a couple of shows in USA, and USA was still very. When we did Biggie and Pac, you got to understand the USA was very blue sky, right? Like they had like Psych and they had like all of these really cool shows, but it's a very specific lane. And then when they decided to do Unsolved, it's completely different. It's dark. We dropping F-bombs. Like it's just different. And so, but it was also because they were so concerned about potential lawsuits because for the most part, if you were dead, you fair game. I mean, it's sad. It's hardcore to say this. Wow. But if you were dead, like we can tell whatever story we wanted to tell. If you were alive, they were concerned. And a lot of these gangsters, a lot of these gangbangers were still alive. And so there was an extra, there were extra measures, including Suge. Exactly. So you had to be smart in how you kind of handled yourself. And so there were circumstances where the notes could be a little overbearing, but also it came from a place of I don't want to be sued, and so we understood that. So at times it felt like death by 1,000 cuts, but a lot of it was just to kind of protect their ass. But for the most part, they were fine. And then even now, where we are on the CW, it's like it's fine, bro. Like we know, like a lot of it is just clarity, and that's the biggest difference. It's like clarity is king in like network TV in terms of like sometimes you got to be very specific in the dialogue, very specific in what you want, very specific in your intentions. Not a lot, but sometimes to certain key points, you got to make it super clear for them to understand, because there are elements where they feel like you still got to kind of spoon feed the audience, even though we know the audience is a lot smarter than we probably give them credit for. So clarity is typically the big note that we get a lot. But on our show, man, it's been, for the most part, especially now in season 3, and just the effect and impact of Netflix, it's kind of forced them to kind of chill a little bit, where it's like it's not as extreme. I think there were times in season 1 where like the notes would be a little much, and you might find yourself over-explaining some stuff or whatever. But for the most part, they've kind of gotten out of the way. So I guess the biggest thing between both of them, on that one, it was more about lawsuits. On this one, regular, in most network shows, even on Rose when I worked on there, it was always about clarity.
Right. So tell the people, because you're an executive producer.
Co-EP. I gotta.
Okay. Co-exec. Got exec on the name.
Right. I'll take it.
Exec. That's right.
I'll take it.
You started as a writer, and you've people may not know the difference between what's the writer compared to executive producer or co-executive producer when you're on a TV series. Tell the people what's the difference?
Okay, so it's 8 levels to writers in your titles. It's almost like rankings, right? Like the bottom level is staff writer. That's when you first make it. The next level is story editor. And then the next one is exec story editor, and then you transition into co-producer, producer, supervisor producer, co-executive producer, and then executive producer. It really just comes down. Sometimes it comes down. Most of the time, it comes down to experience. There are situations you could sell a feature film. I've never worked in a writing film in your life, and we can be instant co-executive producer. Like there are times that you can just jump right into it. Who?
Issa Rae.
Issa Rae, exactly. Yes. But it's also based on her life. So it's like, with her, I get it. And she's also, that's one of my favorite shows. She's talented.
It is.
I love it. It's like,
yes.
So it's like, with her, I get it. You know what I mean? But then there are people who don't deserve it. They get it. Right. A lot of them that don't deserve it and get it. But for the most part, you start as like a staff writer, and then you kind of like, and it's interesting. Like your job, man, can be, I mentor all of them, and staff writer, typically your job, you just kind of come in, bro. It's like you don't want to make too much noise. You just really want to make contributions. And like, the best way for me, how I explain their job to any staff writer, I said, man, as long as you're hitting singles and doubles, you good. And what I mean by that is if over the course of a day you give a good note, you drop a dope note, or you have a really cool pitch that lands and that we use, you know what I mean? Like that's a win. If you got 2 of them, that's a big day. You know what I mean? I said, right. That's all you need to be focused on. I said, and the other thing that you do, like if ever we're stuck on something or we don't quite know, there's a plot point that we can't quite figure out, and then we'll end the day at like 6 o'clock and be like, we'll just think about that tomorrow. We'll pick that up tomorrow. in your off hours, go home, research some stuff, come in tomorrow morning with 2 or 3 ideas. Like that's one of the things that I always encourage staff writers, because that's making you look like a superstar, because there's nothing that a showrunner loves more than somebody that's thinking about his or her show off hours. That's a win. And so kind of encouraging them to kind of think of ideas and they're doing their off hours and kind of maximizing that. And then as you kind of continue to rise, you start to get more responsibilities and you start to get more trust. As you kind of get into like that mid-level, the co-producer, producer range, you start to kind of like, your boss starts to trust you to kind of run the room more. If like 2 or 3, if like the upper level writers are out, your boss to say, okay, run the room today, come up with ideas and all of that other stuff. And it's about kind of gauging that person and their leadership skills and all that other stuff. And then as you kind of get up into the upper levels, a lot of it is just about running the room, man, and kind of keeping that thing moving when your boss is not in there. Because as a showrunner, the job is like 80% bureaucratic nonsense, 20% right. You rarely get a chance to write. You're involved in so much other stuff, from budgets, hiring to putting out fires. They ain't got nothing to do with writing or the show. And so those are typically the responsibilities, like the truncated version of the responsibilities and like those 8 different levels.
Right. Now, I remember being on a sitcom in the writer's room. You had the writers and the exec, and basically the writers wrote the shows. The exec just kind of fine-tuned it to make sure that it was good enough to take over to the network, so that when they would, get their critiques from the network, it was not a lot of critiques. So it's almost like the exec was like the goalie, like send me what you got, and then let me fine tune it. Almost like you guys are the veterans in the room, and you guys know what the network would want, what they don't want, and you go back. Because I don't know if it's like that still, but I know then it was each writer or multiple writers got scripts. They would go, episodes. They would go write the episode, bring it to the table, and the showrunner or whoever would fine tune it with the rest of the writers. That's still how it goes.
In multicam TV, I think a lot of that still kind of plays. I think it's a little different in single cam half hour. Multicam half hour, I still feel like that thing still exists, where you have like the group writing thing, right? Where somebody will write the script, you put it up on the board, and then they go through it. The whole room will go through it and kind of punch it up and kind of do all that other stuff with jokes and different jokes and like, what's the blow to the scene and all of that stuff, like all of that language. And then you have your run through at 1 o'clock, right? With first you have your own run through, then you have a studio network run through, or producers run through. Then you have. It
was like that show Love Is, man. Did you see that show?
I watched like the first.
Dude, that was our time, man.
It was 100%. It was Mara's experience because Mara worked on the Jamie Foxx show, so it was her experience. It was her experiences while working on that show, and it's different, bro. Like that whole 90s sitcom, the black 90s sitcom wave was just different, bro. Like we saw it. I mean, you saw them cars in the parking lot, bro. These dudes was pushing like Porsches and like it was crazy. And and with drama is different. Like in ours, it's very individualized. Like you will break a story together. We typically on All America, every show is different. When I was on Rosewood, we didn't have big rooms. You would come up with an idea for an episode, because most of those episodes are standalone. A standalone, I mean by it's just a beginning, a middle, and end to it. There's no serialized component to it. It will stand on its own. And so we wrote a lot of standalone episodes on Rosewood. So if you had a dope idea, you would normally just bring in like 2 or 3 people and be like, yo, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I kind of want to do. And then y'all kind of talk it out. Next thing you know, you got a fully formed A story and a fully formed B story and like a fully formed C story. And then at that point, you kind of put it up on the board and make sure it makes sense and each scene kind of tracks and make sure you got your science and all that other cool stuff in it. Then I would pitch it to my boss and then he would approve it. And then from that point, and then from there, he'd just give you his approval. Then you write like a 3.5, 4-page document kind of summarizing your episode and the stories. And then once he approves that, then you write like an outline. And on Rosewood, our outlines are like anywhere from 15 to 18 pages. They were long because we incorporated a lot of science. We incorporated pretty much all the procedural beats. And then after you get that approved by not only your boss, but by the studio and the network, then you write the script. And so our scripts would be like anywhere from 48 pages or whatever. We write the script. And at that point, once you're done with the script and you feel really good about it, you would normally give it to the number 2 and the number 3, right? Whoever's your number, who's ever second, whoever is second, who's ever right under your boss, the next 2 under your boss, the 2 and the 3, you would normally give it to them and get notes and feedback. And then they'd give you notes and feedback. You would incorporate their stuff, go through it one more time, and then you send it to your boss. And then at that point, your boss is either going to like give you notes. You know, if your boss loves it, they're just going to give you notes. Then they're going to be happy. Just do this, just do that, just do this, just do that. Yeah. And you kind of keep it moving. And that's kind of And sometimes the boss will go through and they'll do like their pass. They'll add like their sprinkle, they'll add some jokes to do whatever they want to do. They'll call it like the showrunner pass. But if that's contingent upon whatever shape it is when you turn it into them. If it's in great shape, they don't do much. They will literally go through scene by scene and they might add a joke here. They might add a line there. And that's what they want. Like the good bosses don't want to do no work on your script. They want to read it and be like, yo, this is dope. And I ain't got to do nothing. I can go home and see my family.
I wonder what that Lovecraft room looked like when they was pitching those ideas.
Bruh, it's crazy because I'm halfway through Lovecraft and I feel like every episode is different in a good way. It builds. I love what
it's out of this world, right?
Bro, it's nuts.
It's nuts.
It's nuts. But big ups to I got one of my friends is a writer on there, J Kidd, him and his writing partner Sonya, and they're dope. And they're like, and bro, that thing, man, they've been working on that. I think it was season 1. Like I feel like almost the last time I saw J Kidd was like 2018. And I was like, wait, when is this show coming out? And so the show came out like a year and a half later. Like they'd been working on it for a while. But that's HBO. You know, HBO got that bag. You can spend as much time as you want.
Take it, and I know they spend money on that.
Bruh, every episode is nuts. But it's dope, man. What I've seen, I'm halfway through it. But what I've seen, I've really dug, man. And he is like, and I mean, you know, but those kind of shows, it's different. I mean, because I don't know like how, I don't know what was the game plan. Sometimes you have a show like that and it's like, I want to do a show where each week feels like a movie, like The Sopranos, right? Like Sopranos would have episodes that just feel like a movie. It was connected, but not really connected.
Right.
And I feel like there's an element of that kind of plays in that, you know. And you like Watchmen, you know, like shows like that that just kind of like take all these chances and these huge swings and those rooms, I feel just in terms of how they ran are completely different, man. And I feel like they probably have a shit ton of lead time in terms of story. Like I feel like Watchmen was one of those. It probably took a while to break all of those episodes. Probably took like a year or so.
And that was only supposed to be one season, right? They said
yes,
they weren't going.
That's all Lindelof is doing. He's like, they can bring it back if they want, but he won't be involved in it. But I mean, it was one of those. But again, it's a show that like they gave him the time to kind of do his thing because he had writers. I was listening to a podcast. He had writers that left, worked on other shows. He came back. I was like, how long were these dudes in that room, man? Like, it's crazy to me. Like the idea that I leave, I do a 20-week contract or whatever on another show and then come back and I'm still working.
Yeah.
It's nuts. But again, that's HBO, man. It's different over there. Westworld, all of those shows, it's different. They kind of move at their own speed.
So what's driving you right now, man? So what's the energy pack in your back right now?
In terms of like my own stuff, or in terms of
like what you want to do in the future?
I mean, the next step for me is to run my own thing. And I feel like this year has been great because I know I took even more of a leadership role this season for the show. And really a lot of it was just like, however I can help Nkechi, our boss, however I can help her is rule number one for me because she's family and that's part of my job. And like on our show, you know, she has a number 2 and then I'm the number 3. And I think that, you know, the more I do, the more leadership I assume, the better it prepares me for when I kind of do my own thing. And so I got a couple of projects in mind that I plan on going out with in 2021. As I slowly begin to kind of make that transition into my own thing. And it's hard, man. I mean, not so much the job itself is not hard. It's getting an opportunity to run your own show is still hard. And so, but there are more opportunities out there now than ever because there's so much content out there. And so the next step for me, man, is get my own thing. But also practicing patience. Like, I don't want to just get something to get something. Like, I really want to make sure that whatever it is, whether it's something that I create or it's an idea that kind of comes to me that I kind of get an opportunity to kind of like mold, I want to make sure that it's something that I love. Same way I love All American. Like, working on this show is great because it's a great group of people. It's a great young cast. And it's crazy to say, it's been the most successful show that I've ever worked on. And it's also probably been the most popular. And it's also probably been the one where my family's been the most invested. And so, like, I would love to create something that kind of has that same kind of energy.
I'm not going to front, man. I only watched it because you were writing on it.
No, I appreciate it.
The only reason why I started to watch it, and I like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought CW, this is going to be cornball city. I was like, it's going to be corny, but my man is writing on it.
Yes.
So I got at least peep it for him. And I was like, I really liked it. I honestly believe I wanted to be on like HBO. I wanted to be somewhere where it can really let loose.
I know.
I like the energy that it has.
You know, it's interesting, man. I remember when I took the job, right? Because it was I left Pearson and I was just like anxious to go somewhere else, man, because Pearson was not a fun experience. And I remember I'd been in contact with NK, and right around the time she kind of took over the show, like mid-season 1, and you can almost feel the energy shift, even if you were to watch season 1. There's an energy shift that happens around episode 8 or 9 where the show kind of like turns for the better. And then in season 2, like our storytelling just started to get a little bit more bolder. And then, honestly, bro, to be honest with you, Dex, this season is probably, we honestly believe it's the best that we've done. And it's crazy considering like all of it. It's considering what we're all up against just in terms of this pandemic. And, you know, we did the Zoom room thing from like literally March 13th when basically the world shut down from like March until literally last week. Now I've been on set for the last 5 weeks, and that's different because, you know, I get tested 4 times a week. If you're on set every day, you get tested 4 times a week. And, but the flip to it is like, it's the safest place to be because everybody on that set, you know, they've tested negative. You ain't allowed if you ain't test negative. So it's like, you know, okay. And even then we still don't hug. We keep the 6 feet. We all got masks on. But we've all found a way to make it work. In the beginning, I'm pretty sure, because we started back at the end of September. We started filming at the end of September. And I know it was a tougher transition in the beginning for a lot of people, but it's gotten better. And we literally just stopped for a winter break on Friday night. And I've been down in the last 5 weeks, man. And it's been great. It's been a blessing. And so despite all that we've been up against and just all of the adjustments that we had to make based on the protocols in terms of like not having big crowds and all this other stuff has like somehow made the storytelling even more intimate and deeper. You know what I'm saying? And we don't even speak to, for the sake of for aspirational purposes, we have not incorporated the pandemic, the virus into the show at all. Now, but what we have done is we are going to touch on some contemporary stuff, you know, that will have a bigger impact. They'll play more so in the middle of the season. That people will really, I feel like people are going to really kind of lean into. Like we really go hard. It's just different. And so the storytelling keeps, you know, because when I remember I told my reps, I remember telling my agent at the time, I was only season 1. I was only in the show for like 2 months. I literally only had written 1 episode. We only had like 3 at that point. We had already done 13. I came at the very end, and then between 1 and 2, we didn't know if we were going to come back. Like they basically like, bro, because our numbers were low because they didn't really promote us the right way. And I think we were coming in after Riverdale, and it's like it's 2 completely different shows. This is Black people in this show. It's like you can't tie this into Riverdale. You can't. And I think at the time they didn't quite understand that, and so what ended up happening is we basically, you know, the numbers suffered, but we believed in the stories that we were telling. And so
y'all should be on FX, man.
Bro,
FX.
I would love, bro. I wish we was on FX. Like
FX.
You asked
me.
It's
an FX type show to me.
I would love it. You can go even real. You can go super hard. But between 1 and 2, we didn't know for 5 months. And it wasn't until we dropped on Netflix that we got all of this love. And then people like Deion Sanders and like Wale and like all of these celebrities.
Ain't nobody got shit to watch. They done watched everything on Netflix.
Oh, bro.
Everything.
No, but this is the crazy thing. That was 2019. 2020 was nuts. Like our numbers, our season 2 numbers.
Yeah.
Bro, our numbers went up 1,000% on Netflix. Like that was the pandemic view. That's what everybody was like. We're gonna binge this. And then there are certain people who had watched it like 5 times. I'm like, you've watched this how many times? And so, but a lot of it, man, I remember telling my agent at the time, I was like, I said, once Black people find this show, it's going to blow up.
So I guess, we're kind of wrapping it up. Tell me, so if I have a script, I got a script.
Okay.
I want to get in this game. What should be my first move?
It's interesting, man. There's so many different ways, obviously. Like nowadays, there's so many different types of like places you can kind of submit your script to, like Blacklist and all that other stuff. That's typically if you have if you know someone, reach out to that someone you know. Because it's like it can't hurt. And if there's ever a time in this business where Black folks, people of color, or at least being listened to, it's right now.
All right, I'm gonna send you a script.
Shoot it to me.
I'm serious.
You got it. Shoot it to me. You know what I'm saying? It's documented. You know what I'm saying? Shoot it to me, bro. It's all good. I mean, because to me, it's either if you know someone, the other way, if you don't know, obviously you got to kind of go through the process. You got to kind of submit. But there are programs that are starting to pop up, like Lena Waithe and like the Hillman grad and all that other stuff where, they have classes and then they even have like free classes now where you can take those and kind of get on. And what's dope about that is it kind of puts you in front of her. And she's always looking for people. And I think you're starting to see that across the board for like other places. And then, obviously the unfortunate nature with which George Floyd was murdered this year, as well as others, has like impacted our business too, man, in a way where there's a push. And now it's up to us to not make it temporary, but to make it permanent. Then we kind of keep our foot on their neck for them to kind of understand that this is kind of what it needs to be
for sure.
Moving forward for good. But again, that's up to people like me and like other people who have an opportunity to kind of impact this, for the next 20, 25 years. And so, because of that, they're starting to work out more programs to give people even more access to kind of get into the game. So it's either someone submit to like Blacklist, or actively looking to programs and workshops that can kind of help you and can kind of put you in front of people. Because sometimes it's just about kind of putting you in front of somebody for people to kind of recognize who you are.
Word. So just to get out of here, man, I do this cruise every year where I actually do their promotion. I do their video and photography, and it's based in San Francisco. So there's a bunch of Bay Cats, man.
That's what's
I
up.
think about you every time. And of course they play Too Short and E40 all day all week on this cruise. All week. So did you watch the E40 versus Too Short?
Come on, man. I gotta pop my collar for you. Do you not understand what I gotta do? Come on, Dex. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Bro, it was one thing I posted. There was E40 is like Dancing the Sideways, a song, one of his many hit songs that I love. But early 40, pre-hyphy 40, and I love all 40. I like every version of E40, but the pre-hyphy is the one that had the most nostalgic moments for me. In a major way, it's still one of my favorite albums, not just by E40, but just ever by any artist. And anything Too Short made, especially in those first 5 or 6 albums, bro, it's just special, man. Because it's pimping on wax. It ain't about lyrics, it's about pimping on wax. Like no one did it like that dude. And as far as E40, no one manipulated language like that, man.
No one.
So it's like these two dudes are iconic and they're different. Like they were okay being different, man. And you gotta fully embrace that. And a lot of it you don't fully understand unless you're from the Bay, man, because it's different. It's a different.
And I admit, coming from the East Coast, man, it took me a minute to really like the style of E40 and to do it because it was different than what I was used to hearing. But once I got it, I fell in love with it, and I said, man, I love them both, man.
Because they've always fully embraced who they are, and it's so rare. You know what I mean? And it's funny you brought it up earlier in terms of like kids being influenced by these influencers and kind of seeing them. You're like, this is trash what they're doing, but they have like 1 million hits because at that point, whomever that person is kind of like built a following. Yep. But the kids liking that, and then the kids trying to do exactly what that person's doing, and they're failing. And like E40 and Too Short never did that.
No,
they're like, you know what? This is what I do.
Who I am.
Kind of who I am. You know what I'm saying? I'm inspired by the Mac. I understand the pimp culture. The pimp culture had an influence on my life. The Mac is a movie that was shot in West Oakland. It's like I know like this is kind of what it is, and that's what he did, and he kind of leaned into that. He kind of leaned into what his Oakland was, which is obviously it was the crack era, all of that other stuff. But what he did better than anybody was he literally put pimping on wax, and I think that and it's funny because in Luke Skywalker, like those dudes, they did it in a different way. But that one was way more debauchery, but it was fun. You know what I'm saying? It was like I remember as a 12-year-old seeing all them strippers. I was like, this is the life.
You can't even do what he did no more.
You can't do it. You can't. There's no way.
You can't have them type shows no more.
Bruh, that's all. You can't even play it on Instagram. You get one of those guidelines like those, like when they censor you, the Move Something video, bro. I watched that Move Something video I was 12. I watched that video so many times. Me and my boy watched that video so many times. I was like, I can't wait to get to Miami. Like it's on and popping when I'm 18. That's the first place I'm going.
And funny, we had a DJ in Baltimore who was from Miami. His name is Frank Ski. He's down in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
Brought that sound to Baltimore and mixed it with our club music sound. And had a song called Doo Doo Brown.
Oh yeah.
It's taken from the hook of 2 Live Crew when they say Doo Doo Brown.
Yes.
He takes that and adds a club beat to it, and it became a hit here in Baltimore.
Oh, that's fantastic, bro. I remember that Doo Doo Brown. That Doo Doo Brown was great.
Mixed the bass. Yeah, the bass and the club sound.
That's wild.
Came with Baltimore kind of became after that. Our sound became bass mixed with club music. And so we kind of still there.
That's what's up.
Because of that. But that's crazy. Last thing. How you Golden State Warriors gonna do this year, man?
It's interesting, man. I don't know. I mean, I'm like the Clay thing obviously was big. What I will say though, I will say this about them: like they got dudes that are hungry to kind of prove themselves. The makeup of this Dubs team, although it's not the pre-KD version. It's almost probably like the 2012, 2013 version of what they were, or maybe the 2013, 2014 version of what they were. I love Kelly Oubre's game. I love. It's interesting. Andrew Wiggins as a second or third option is probably the best version of Andrew Wiggins you'll ever get because he's not a number one. Yeah. And I think that the way Steph impacts and affects games will like determine how this dude plays and how he kind of takes advantage of it. The thing, it's going to take time, man, because these dudes have not had a lot of time together. They've not had a lot of practices. They've only had like 3 preseason games. And when you kind of put this mishmash of players together, it's tricky. But Kent Basemore, I thought was a nice pickup.
Yeah, that was.
And Wanamaker, I like Wanamaker, man. I like simple pickups like that. Because when we picked up Sean Livingston back in the day, like dude was done. Like at that point, like he was the dude. He was supposed to be that guy, and then he kept having those knee injuries. But he's always been a highly skilled.
He blew
dude.
His kneecap out of his body.
Yeah, out of his body, like it's somewhere. His kneecap is somewhere. It still hasn't been found.
No, you don't know where it is.
It's in the ether. You know what I'm saying? Like it will never be found. Gone. And so, but he worked his way back. He became that guy. He had like the little Richard Pryor fro. He kind of became the JoJo Dancer joint. He kind of had.
I need Wiseman to do something. I picked him up late in my fantasy team. So
They've been
show up.
This is the thing, man. I've never heard. I'm curious to see him play. I remember because that was Penny's prize class in Memphis. So I remember watching like him and Precious Achua and like all of these dudes that Penny Hardaway had like. That he recruited last year. Yeah. And I remember watching like his second game. I mean, he only played 3. I remember watching like 1 or 2 of them, and the boy was special. And now, what I've never heard that I've been hearing, like Steve Kerr he's tempering expectation, but it's hard for him. Like he keeps gushing about this dude. So there's something that this dude is doing in practice because Steve Kerr doesn't do that for anybody. There's something that he's doing in practice that's really impressing him. But he also said, practice. We should all practice patience because he's 19. But on the other side of it, he's basically hinting to the fact that the boy is special. That he's doing things because what he's noticed in 3 practices is that by his 3rd practice, he was not making the same mistakes he was making by his first practice, which to me is always a sign of a kid that has something special because that means that they adjust quickly. And so, God willing, I'm just praying for health on all ends because with Wiggins, with him, with Pascal, who played very well last year, with Damian Lee and all these other dudes, what they do have is they have length and switchability. Right. And so and when you get Draymond back, Draymond probably won't play tomorrow night because of his foot. whenever you get Draymond back as their leader, like I feel like they're going to give teams more problems than people expect, and I kind of like that. And I like them being a dark horse. I like people not really thinking much about them because everybody got better. The Lakers got better. The Blazers got better with Covington. Like, they got better defensively. Like, but then teams got weaker. Like, I feel like Houston got weaker. I feel like Denver is going to be fine because they got great young talent, but I feel like they don't have Denver's one of those teams that probably needed another vet. Because I feel like they have everything else, man. I mean, that Jamal Murray is the problem.
If they move Harden, Houston might get stronger.
It's interesting, man, because it's like, where do you move them to? If you send them to the Nets, like, does that affect the Nets? Because they got pieced in that. I would give Dinwiddie and LeVert and, like, Allen, like, those are 3 starters that could play. Like,
right away.
They can all play, like, right away.
Right away.
All 25, like, and Allen is only, like, 22 years old. And, like, Dinwiddie and LeVert are 26. So it's like, these dudes aren't old. So you're getting younger, and you're getting
and they put up 20-something a night when they
they got it. People forget about that team, man. Like, the Kenny Atkinson team 2 years ago with D'Angelo Russell and Karis LeVert, like even younger LeVert and a younger Dinwiddie, they got in the playoffs. And they pushed Toronto in that first round. They got 2 wins out of Toronto, man. Like, they pushed them, and people forget about that. And I'm like, they can play. Like, those boys can outright play. So it'll be interesting to see if he does go there and that's what they trade for. I don't know. The whole Harden thing to me is a mess. I don't know what you're gonna like. I don't know who's willing to give up what for him. There aren't many options for him.
Right.
But I would love him to leave.
Too much for him.
They want too much for him.
Once they come down off of what they want, I think he'll move. He'll probably end up going. I think he's gonna go to the Nets because they have more to give. But we'll see. Because I wouldn't want him because I don't think he adds to my team. Now, if you bring him to the Nets, then he doesn't have to be the star.
So who are you? Who are you? You Wizards or who are you?
Wizards, but I'm about to sell him. I'm really like not. I like the Westbrook move.
I do too.
But if they hadn't done the Westbrook move, I think I would have gave up. But I said, okay, they trying.
I gotta be honest, man. To me, like, the Westbrook move. Nice. Okay, I'll be right back. My daughter's lost her tooth. I'll be right there, baby. The Westbrook move, I love a lot because I just think back to Westbrook when KD was out. Not even when KD was still with the team. What was that 2015? Yeah. And, like, Westbrook led them to the playoffs. He put that team on his back, and they had nothing. And then, I mean, they had players, but they didn't have like players. And you got Bradley Beal was a problem. Yes. I love the young boy, the Denny guy, the young kid, the Denny, I like him. I like Hachimura.
Hachimura gonna be something this year.
All them boys from Gonzaga coming to the league and they can play, man. And I like Burton's. Like, y'all got dudes, man. It's just gonna come down to obviously defense, and we keep. In this era of basketball, it's about length, it's about wings, and it's about switchability. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then how good are you defensively? It ultimately comes down to that kind of stuff. But it's also, this year in particular, is about who can gel the fastest, because a lot of teams have been dealing with a lot of different new pieces and new faces. Yeah. And a lot of that's going to come down to coaching and who can get their players up to speed the fastest. But Bill and Westbrook in the backcourt is a problem.
Yes. I hope that they become a problem all year.
I think they are, man. I feel, even if it starts slow, I feel like when you get in like that February, you start getting into that spring, man. I feel like you're gonna start seeing a team, man.
I can't wait to see what they're gonna do.
That's the upgrade. That's a significant upgrade. And John Wall's a talented dude. That is a significant upgrade.
So I'm cautiously still a Wizards fan. Cautiously.
Yes, smart man. But hey, I'm not mad at that. I mean,
because the Wizards, we feel like you probably do in Oakland. They were Baltimore Bullets. They moved to DC. DC took them and act like they never was here. Like,
right. It drives me crazy. That's the Warriors.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with them. It's like they used to be in San Fran, so I give them that. They were in San Fran when they first came out, and then they moved to Oakland. But, like, y'all won championships in the town, bro. Like, you took 3 out of the last 5, like 3 out of the last 6 now in the town, and it's like, come on, man. And they do the thing where now this year they came up with the special Oakland uniforms. I'm like, come on, man, that ain't the same. It's like, you ain't never coming back. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I've seen that stadium. It's crazy. Like, the new stadium is nuts.
So y'all are hurting over there. Y'all lost the Warriors and the Raiders.
And the Raiders is another one, man, where it's like, man, don't even start on the Raiders this year.
Man.
Gruden choked so bad in December, man, and he lost the game on Thursday. That was him and play.
Y'all still riding for the Raiders over there?
I still rock with him, man, because it's like, I look, when I made the choice to like the Raiders, they were in LA. It was Marcus Allen, in the Super Bowl against the Redskins, and so I'm like, what?
Oh yeah.
I was like, at that point, and then they came back home like 12 years later, and so it's
crazy. It seems like LA still root for the Raiders. They got two teams,
and it's still Raiders
for the Raiders.
Oh, bro, when they play the Chargers, I mean, granted they had no fans this year at the new stadium, but next year, I promise you, the last 2 years when they were playing in Carson, it was 65-70% Raiders, to the point where Phillip Rivers was crying, not crying, but crying about like,
where y'all at?
Where y'all at? It's like when you hear more cheers, because the Raiders had won one game, so when you hear more cheers in your own stadium, when the opposing team scores, that's a problem.
The Chargers shouldn't be there at all.
They should not. They're one of those teams. They've always been a transitional team. San Diego is a transitional city. So unfortunately, they've never had. And the sad thing, their quarterback is a beast. That Herbert is a beast.
They should give him back to St. Louis, but let St. Louis take him. Since the Rams got out of there, get him to St. Louis. Get the Chargers to St. Louis.
St. Louis needs a team too. I would say that's not a bad idea, man. Because St. Louis, they were loyal to the Rams.
Great fans there, man. Great fans.
Bruh. And then you think about with baseball, the Cardinals, like they were loyal. You give them a football team, Chargers actually wouldn't be a bad idea, man.
Give it to them. Just get them out of LA. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, it should have been that should have from the beginning should have been the Rams and the Raiders, or just the Rams.
And the Clippers need to leave too.
They're moving to Inglewood.
No, they need to get out of LA.
They don't
They don't love them.
They was in San Diego, and it was Buffalo Braves back in the day.
Just leave California.
Because, bro, the way they folded this year,
they can go to Seattle, man. Seattle been wanting the team back.
Together, Seattle Clippers will be good.
Put them back to Seattle, man. Let Seattle get a team again, man.
That's good for the owner because he's with Microsoft, right? So he's back in Washington. You might as well.
I heard he bought the Forum. That's where he's trying to move him, right?
He bought the Forum, yeah.
I heard he can't. But my boy out there said they can't knock down the Forum because they made it some type of monument out there or something.
Yeah, I would hope that they would, man. We were just there. We just saw comedy. We saw Joe Coy. We just saw some comedy there, man. It's still a legendary spot, man. Even though it's older, it's still a legendary spot, man. You can smell the memories when you walk in, man.
So you got the football stadium in Inglewood. You can put the Clippers in Inglewood. So basically, Inglewood ain't our city no more.
Inglewood, no, at all. Let me tell you. So this is 100% facts. A friend of mine bought a house in Inglewood. She was smart. She bought a house there in 2017. If I had to guess, I don't know what she paid, but probably, Cali prices are crazy in general, right? She probably paid like $400,000 for it, right? Which is nuts. But like she did a complete gut job. She's completely gutted it. Like her and her husband, and the house is dope now. And if I had to guess right now, 3 years later, that house is probably worth about 1.2, 1.3.
Man,
it is so, and she's South Inglewood, so it's like she's away from that, and so it's just that whole area, bro. When you build a man-made lake, like that stadium, outside of that stadium, they built Lake Inglewood. What is
really,
bro? It looks like Palm Springs. Like if you get a chance, Google the blueprint for I think it's Sofitel. Sofitel said Google the blueprint for that stadium. It looks like a city.
My boy worked on it for a minute. My man, you probably remember him, Andrew Barron. I don't know if you remember him. Little Mexican.
Oh, Andy. Yeah.
Me and him still.
That's what's up.
Ticket, man. He's come to Baltimore, come to see me.
That's dope.
He's an electrician now. And
that's what's up.
He worked in the stadium for a minute. He told me, he said, Dex, you got to see it. It's crazy. It's like a spaceship.
That's dope, man. It's funny, man. About 3-4 weeks ago, because I know he was another one that I know he was thinking about getting in the film, right? Like he wanted to direct it.
He was, he stayed in it for a minute, longer than me. He out there because he lives out there, so he ended up, his best friend's father was Warren, with the guy who created TGI Fridays.
Yes,
that was like his best friend, but of course, once it get real, cats kind of fall off a little bit. Can't really help you.
Nope.
But he actually came to Baltimore and worked on the movie Replacements.
Are you serious?
And he was working as the back when they used to do the dailies in the trailer. He was just running the trailer.
That's what's up. So now he's an electrician. Does he do? So is he union or is he just?
Yeah, he's union.
But for stadiums and stuff, he does
like big
construction.
Yeah,
got you. Okay,
big buildings and things like
that. That's what's up.
And he said they actually did some work in the. I think they have a arena or something inside the football stadium.
Bro, they got so much.
It's like a big arena. Like they said they're gonna be doing award shows or some shit there.
Oh yeah. Bro,
I'm like, crazy. What? He said it's like
crazy.
A big ass. He says a big ass arena that they're building.
You got to look it up. It's crazy, dude.
What? He said that's the award shows are gonna go there now. Watch.
Yeah. Oh, without question, all of them. And you got a lot of space, so it makes sense. It's not like you're gonna, because that's one thing to kind of be at the shrine or kind of be at these other places in these congested areas. It's like you have an award, like you have any kind of festivities or any kind of like award show or ceremony. Like at a football stadium where you got a shit ton of parking. And he bought out that whole area. Any that man
was the horse track, right? Wasn't that the horse track?
Yeah, it used to be the Inglewood, was it Inglewood? Hollywood Park. Hollywood Park.
Yeah.
Hollywood Park.
Yeah, yep. I remember that. That's what it was when I was out there. Hollywood Park.
I went there a few times back in the day. Yep. They didn't know what to do with it. Then they started having like food truck festivals and all that other stuff there. And then I guess dude was like, nah, we're gonna build something here. And he dropped like $6 billion on that spot.
Look, man, this was great. We're gonna keep up, bro. Man.
Yes.
Are you in LA or are you in Oakland?
I'm in LA.
So when I get back out there, we're gonna get together.
I'm down.
Sure. All right.
Hit me up, man.
Brian, man. I haven't seen Brian in a long time.
B got 2 kids, man. He got a little boy that's 2, and he got a little girl that's like 4. Yeah, man.
Because I keep up with him on social media as well.
Yeah, B is doing it.
Yeah, so
I'm glad we working together, man. I didn't know he was there till literally my first day there, and I saw him on a cart. I'm like, yo.
Yeah.
Because we worked together a little bit after you and him and I started working together in 2003 at Paramount. We were PAs at the same time.
Okay.
And we had always stayed in contact, man. And he kind of went off and did his thing, and then I'm glad that we kind of reconnected, man.
Because he's like stage manager, right? Or
he's like, he's base camp. So basically, he's in charge of. He's an AD. He's the second AD, but he's in charge of all of the base camp stuff, which is kind of dope, and he likes it because it's way more chill. So he's the one that's basically making sure the actors get out their chairs and get out that makeup trail and all that other shit. Like that's one of his many responsibilities is make sure they get the fuck on get the set on time.
The guy when I first moved to LA, I stayed with, who got me to connect with Henry Johnson. His name was Rob Sellers Jr. So Rob was a floor director on or stage manager on the Martin Show. That's why I did an episode. I was on an episode of Martin in his last season.
As an actor or?
No, I just was an extra.
Okay.
But I did get a scene where I shook. It was a Tone Loc episode. I shook his hand.
Great.
I was like right in the middle of the camera. I was getting a lot of play. I didn't have no words. But I was in the midst of that one scene. I took over the scene, Jamie. Anyway, this guy ended up being floor director, stage manager on I think it was what's the singing show that everybody used to love?
Glee?
No, Idol. American Idol.
Oh, American Idol. Gotcha.
He did the first season of that and just went on with that. I heard that made him tons of money. He does like BET Awards.
Oh, that's what's up.
Stage managing. He does a lot of those award shows, the Black award shows anyway.
Okay.
And, he was living in Vegas, and then I found him on Instagram. His ass lives in another country some damn way. I don't know what he's doing. He was always crazy. But I heard he bought a Lamborghini and shit.
Oh, wow. He was
doing it in Vegas. Living in Vegas with a Lamborghini.
Oh, bro. Well, that's how you can do it. Yeah, it's so cheap. Vegas so cheap, man.
And look, I remember living in his apartment, and this nigga didn't have a refrigerator. I'm like, where your refrigerator? I eat on the set. I said, man, I can't stay here. I said, I need a refrigerator, player. Like, I eat on the set. I said, ain't this a bitch? So I had to move out.
It's funny, though. It's like most of us do. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially in the man.
Dude, I tell people, this belly came from the set eating at midnight.
Every
pasta
time.
Meals.
Bruh.
They don't know the struggle, Jamie, of printing 300 scripts on printers that don't work. Me and you go up and down the
upstairs, downstairs. They don't understand, bruh. Like when they were talking about, or you got to deliver them to, like right around the time I worked on 101 in like the early 2000s. It's like a delivery service. I remember my first day, and I'm like, okay, I got 12 of them. In my mind, I'm about to rack this up. I'm about to get all these miles. I said, no, we got a service for that. I said, you got a what? So it's a delivery service. So wait, so what? He said, yeah, you just call them. I said, so I ain't got to do nothing. So, I mean, I get no OT. No. All I'm thinking about is the money. I'm like, how do I secure this bag? Because I'm like, I get OT, I get miles. Yes. I'm about to win. I didn't get none of that.
We was killing them with the miles. We were killing them.
I was leaving every day at 6 o'clock. I didn't know what to do with myself. That's when you get in trouble, though. It's like, so I was a single dude before I got married. You know what I mean? I was like, I didn't know at 6 o'clock I can go home. What? I'm not going home.
Yeah, what we doing?
What do I do? I got freedom.
Oh, man.
It's different, man. It became a different kind of business.
I promise you, we'd still be hanging out if I stayed out there, man.
Oh, facts. That's without question. Dude.
Hey, this was great, man. I'm glad you did this for me.
Bruh, thank you for having me, man. This is dope. Let's not, to your point, we got to make sure that not only that we stay in contact, and if you out this way, get at me, because I'm around, man.
For sure. I'm gonna hit you up. I hope to come out there as soon as we can. As soon as the world opens back up.
Yep.
I had planned to come out in 2020 to see my man Andy, because like I said, me and Andy still get together, and so I still
tell myself what's up, man.
Oh, I definitely will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna still make that trip. I'm a godfather to his son.
Oh, that's what's up, dude.
Yeah, so
that's what's up.
Him and you were the two that I connected with that I always remember. Dex Dog. That's what Jamie. Yo, Dex Dog.
Yeah, man. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Bro, it's funny, man. I remember Dex. I'm telling you, nobody was happier for you than when you sent me that video. I remember KG. I'm sitting here talking to you. I'm like, the whole KG Connect and Chris Robinson and all of that other stuff. And I'm like, and when you shot that, I was like, this shit is dope, man.
Yeah. I was proud
of that. My man got it. My man.
I was proud of that moment. I wish it would have turned into more. But I mean,
you never know, though.
Man, I have no regrets.
Nope.
And I'm happy, and I'm going to keep pushing.
You keep pushing. It's cool that you're back at the school, but that doesn't mean that you can't still do some other stuff, bro.
I plan to.
You know what I mean?
I definitely plan to. So,
you know what I'm saying? So let's keep talking about that, too. Let's keep talking about that.
I actually went to a writing program, too. I can't think of his name all of a sudden. He does these famous writing programs all over the country, usually in New York and London. And I got the job to send me to his writing school. There was some actors in there. There was some directors in there that got big names. And McKee.
Oh, Robert McKee.
Robert McKee. Yeah, yep. I went to his acting. I mean, his
seminars. You have
seminar.
Yeah. Where'd you go?
In New York. I went 2 years ago.
Oh, so it was recent. So he's still doing it.
2 years ago in New York, he had one in New York. I got Morgan to pay for it, send me out there, and because it was like $1,500, $2,000 for like 3 days intensive. He told us, he said, I'm gonna give you a whole. It's like you went to school for a whole semester in 3 days, and all we did is talk about script writing 3 straight days for 8 hours a day.
Damn, bro.
And then on the 4th day, he showed us Casablanca and went through it scene by scene. Yeah.
How was that? How was all of that?
I mean, it was informational. I learned a lot, but I can tell you that it was moments where he just was like, because he don't take questions. Like he talks for the 8 hours. Like he'll take a break, and then during the break, he says, if you got anything to ask me during the breaks. But I'm trying to get some food and trying to get out.
Everybody else is.
You know, I'm trying to get out the damn building and walk New York for a minute, clear my mind.
Yes, fresh air.
Nothing. And then it's a line of people trying to talk to him. I'm like, I'm not wasting my lunch trying to say what's up to this guy.
I got to eat.
Man, I'm going to eat. And then I sit back in here. But I noticed it was a couple of actors that came through that people must have recognized. And I didn't know who they were. And one guy came in. They said he's a director. I didn't know who he was. But apparently his seminars are pretty popular.
Oh, yeah. He's been doing it for a minute now, man. That's the whole – I don't know if you ever seen Adaptation.
Yeah.
The Spike Jonze movie Adaptation, he goes in on him. It's kind of great. So the whole movie is about how much he hates Robert.
I didn't see it, but I've heard of it.
Bruh, if you get a chance, watch Adaptation because it basically goes in on Robert McKee. It's in its own way. It's this dude like flashing the middle finger at this dude. It's kind of great. It's It's an amazing movie though.
But yeah, I did that course just to see what that was about. It did teach me some things though.
Yeah.
It taught me some things. But you never know until you're doing it and around the people that are doing it.
You in it. You just gotta be in it. And it's really just, it's the everyday grind. That's how you grow. That's how you evolve. That's how it kind of becomes a thing. The more you're around it. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm gonna keep picking your brain, but we're gonna.
Yes, sir. Get at me, man. Whatever you need, man. You got my. It's funny when you text me. You say, "This is Dexter, bro." I still got this number, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I had this number.
It's crazy that I had this number that long. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. Mine is just as long. I feel like I didn't have mine since like, man, 98.
Wow.
99. Like I've had mine for like 20 something
years. Think about it. When we met, we didn't even have cell phones. It was all pages.
No. Exactly. Yeah, that's all we had back then.
Was pages.
We had the work pages, and I'd be like,
the work pages and our personal.
2 of them. Yeah,
everybody got the personal. I'm not giving these people the personal. They can be buzzing me all the damn time.
Nope. I need that space, bro. I need them breaks. You feel me? I gotta have that.
So yeah, man. Well, look, bro. I'm gonna let you go and do your life, man.
Bro, this has been dope. Let's keep it going. Send Tanisha my love, man.
I sure will.
See her forever.
Tell your family I said what's up. Tell an old friend.
For sure.
Hey, and I hope to meet him.
Yes, that'd be cool.
Yeah, as soon as we open up, man, I'm coming that way.
That's what's up. Because I also, and then the other thing, Dex, I'm in Philly a lot because my wife's from Philly. So,
okay.
And my wife went to Temple. It's funny when you were talking about your son. She graduated from Temple, but like I'm in Philly a lot, man. So even if I'm on your side, and especially if it's one of those trips where we out there for like 2 weeks, because sometimes. One time we went to DC for a day, but I'm like, I didn't hit nobody up that day because we was literally there for a day. Yeah. But I want to hit DC for longer. Yeah. And go down there. And so I'll let you know.
Have you been to Baltimore ever?
I drove through it.
You through it?
We drove through it. I ain't been to it, so I gotta go. You got to show me.
I gotta show you where the wire was shot.
Oh yeah, show me all of that, bro. Take me. I'm down. I'm with it.
I'm just gonna drive you through though.
That's fine. We gotta get out. I get it. I understand. It's all good.
It's still really
Lake trout sandwich. What is it called? Lake trout sandwich.
Oh yeah.
We get one of those.
Let's
get it.
For sure. It's some crab cakes.
Definitely gotta get the crab cakes. That's probably the only place I want to go to get the crab cakes.
Gotta get the crab cakes. Nothing else. Get the crab cakes.
Let's get it.
Yeah, man.
I'm with it.
All right, brother.
All right, my brother. You take care, man.
All right, take care. All right, brother.
Later.
Later.